Death on the Riverwalk by Carolyn Hart. In loving memory of Philip, December 22, 1960 to February 21, 1998. Someday, upon a far distant, sunnier shore. Mother. Prologue. Alfonso scrabbled every day to survive. He'd been on the streets since he was 7. He knew no other life. He cadged food from the garbage bins behind fine restaurants, flashed smiles at Norteamericanos and offered information they liked, where to find women and drugs and hotels that catered to guests with peculiar tastes. His English was not grammatical, but he spoke it well enough. In the summers he wandered Chapultepec Park, Mexico City's oasis of loveliness amid the stinging brownish smog that dimmed the porcelain-fine sky and tainted lungs. It was only at night that the air freshened. Alfonso especially enjoyed prowling in the darkness from his hidden nesting place in a clump of willows behind the National Museum. Alfonso was as attuned to his surroundings as a cougar alert for a meal. He first noticed the big blonde Norteamericano late on a moonlit August night, slipping from shadow to shadow behind the museum. Alfonso watched and wondered. The man came a second night. The next morning he was in a crowd waiting for tickets. There was a grand exhibit at the museum, drawing visitors from around the world. When the man came again late that night, Alfonso called out, "Señor, if you are looking for anything, I can help." The man jerked toward him. Alfonso tensed his muscles, ready to run. He wasn't afraid, and he had a knife in his pocket. "So, what do you sell?" The big man's Spanish was accented, but he spoke it with ease. Alfonso felt a stab of disappointment. He'd wasted a lot of time tracking this man. No one who spoke Spanish that well needed help to find whatever the city had to offer. But Alfonso slipped into his usual patter. "Girls, I can take you to a special place." But not even the mention of drugs or gambling evoked a response in the alert eyes that watched him so closely. Instead, the man's big head tilted back and he laughed. "How to skin a gringo in one easy lesson." Alfonso was turning away when the man said, Wait a minute. I've got a job for you, if you've got the guts." Alfonso swung back and listened. When the man finished, Alfonso rocked back on his heels and gave him a cocky grin. "Sure," he spoke in English. "No problem." He held out his hand. They haggled, but Alfonso walked away with a third of the money he'd been promised. The next night, Alfonso slipped down a quiet street outside the park. He carried a pop bottle. The liquid inside sloshed as he walked. The rag stuffed in the mouth of the bottle was moist, and the smell of gasoline made his nose wrinkle. When he reached the tall fence, he used a wax match, lit the rag, and threw. The single bomb exploded, and huge flashes marked the destruction of the electrical transformers serving this portion of Mexico City. In the National Museum, the lights went off, as did the alarm system. Alfonso's employer, dressed in black sweater and slacks, slipped from the cover of a clump of willows and ran lightly toward the back of the museum. He flung high a rope ladder, pulled to make sure its hooks held snugly, and climbed swiftly. He pulled the ladder up with him and moved purposefully toward the front of the museum, the small knapsack on his back bouncing with every step. His heart thudded, and he felt the sweet, sharp elixir of adrenaline. 1. I glanced at the computer printout that rested on the passenger seat of the rental car, a casual picture of a grandmother and granddaughter, arms linked, faces aglow with laughter and love. The bright photograph had been scanned into a computer half a world away, and the resulting crisp picture that had issued from my daughter's computer was one of the small miracles that no one remarks in today's technological wonderland. The grandmother, Gina Wilson, was one of my oldest friends, a shining memory from the happiest years of my life. The granddaughter, Iris Chavez, was a child I'd come to know because she spent much of her growing up time with Gina. Iris was near in age to my own granddaughter, Diana. The faces in the photograph were sharply different, despite their laughter on the day the picture was snapped on a sunny summer afternoon at Laguna. It wasn't simply a matter of age. Gina's short-cropped white hair and Dresden china pale skin and Iris's richly raven curls and creamily dusky complexion made a lovely contrast. Gina's sharply planed features were arresting, her light green eyes curious and skeptical, her smile amused, yet with a sardonic undercurrent, as befitted a woman who'd been one of the cleverest political reporters of her time. Iris's face was cherubic, still so young there were no lines. Her eyes were also green, but there was no challenge in Iris's gaze. Instead, eagerness vied with uncertainty. Iris's bow of a mouth was marked with brilliantly red lipstick, but the vivid color couldn't hide vulnerability. The two sets of green eyes were the only real resemblance in the photograph. What had Gina once told me? She'd looked out the window at Iris playing in the yard and smilingly observed, "Iris is the image of her father, except for her eyes." Iris. The name brought to my mind the vision of a slim blonde with startlingly blue eyes. But not this Iris, not Iris Chavez, whom I remembered as a giggling little girl with a mop of curly black hair, and later as a plump, eager-to-please teenager, a sweet, bouncy, cheerful girl. I'd not seen Iris or Gina in several years, yet when the phone rang yesterday at my daughter's home in East Texas, I'd immediately recognized Gina's voice, and just as swiftly known there was trouble. Or, to be precise, realized immediately that Gina was terribly afraid. I hoped that soon, very soon, I could call Gina and say everything was okay. I slowed for a red light, checked my map. Although San Antonio streets often change names, I was finding my way without difficulty. Gina's directions had been clear and careful. Almost there. Gina hated to ask for help, but there is nothing you won't do, no mile you won't walk, no mountain you won't climb, no effort you won't make for a grandchild. I understand that. I have 2 grandchildren of my own. I didn't blame Gina for being frightened. Even though Gina was half a world away, Gina in Mallorca, Iris in San Antonio, they kept in close touch by email. At least once or twice a week they exchanged messages. It was their custom to chat on Saturday morning Iris's time, Sunday afternoon Gina's time in Mallorca. Nothing, Henrie O. Nothing since last Wednesday. And Iris never misses emailing on Saturday mornings without telling me in advance that she will skip. I've sent message after message. I've called and called. There's no answer. I thought of contacting the police, but what could I tell them? That I haven't received an email? That I can't get her on the phone? That's not enough to report her as missing. She paused. And maybe she's just out of town with a friend. Oh, there could be many reasons. I don't want to embarrass her, but I can't wait any longer. Gina's voice quavered. Email. It links us to the world no matter where we live. It was through a casual email that Gina knew I was visiting my daughter Emily, and that I was only a 3-hour drive from San Antonio where Iris lived. And yes, my days were free. I was no longer teaching, though I'd decided to keep my home in the Missouri college town where I'd been on the journalism faculty for several years. And yes, I could easily go to San Antonio, and yes, I would do that for my frightened friend. I'd received Gina's call early this morning. Now the answer was near. Perhaps I would find Iris at her apartment. If I didn't find her, I would go to the store where she worked, and perhaps we'd both laugh, and, after she'd called her grandmother, assured her she was fine, Iris would offer to buy me a cold raspa, the shaved ice confection so dear to San Antonians, and I would stay a few days in this lovely city. What better place to do some early Christmas shopping, then resume my visit at my daughter's? I turned to my left, my right, and found the apartment house at the end of the street. I locked my car and stood in the shadow of a palm tree. I hated leaving the windows up. September marks fall in the north. In San Antonio, sunny, warm days continue. Oh, an occasional cold front will drop the temperature into the low 80s.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?